Cameras on. Meeting of the Somerville Planning Board for October 12th, 2022 will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act has been provided. Copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was one posted on the bulletin board outside Borough Hall, 2 mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and 3 given to the Clerk Administrator. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Okay, first order of business is to swear in Lisa.
Ms. Warner, you did get a Form 3. It's always a pleasure to do this. Would you please raise your right hand? Okay. I, Lisa Warner, do solemnly swear
I, Lisa Werner, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform the duties of planning board member
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform the duties of the planning board according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
It's great to be back.
Welcome. Okay, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the minutes for 9/28. So moved. Second. Any additions or corrections? Somebody want to move? Oh, you moved it already, okay. Cliff, are you prepared to do a roll call on this?
I believe so. I just learned about that. Thank you very much. There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Chairman Novato?
I abstain, I was not at the meeting.
All right. Ms. Rosinski? She's not
here. Right.
Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Ms. Kraska?
Yes.
And Mr. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Here, close.
Okay, Mr. Akins? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And Ms. Warner?
I abstain, I was not here.
Very good. Okay, we're all set. The vote is unanimous.
Great.
I'm sorry, I did not know that the secretary, I did not know that, I was not aware that I would be doing this, so I asked you to bear with me a little bit. I've done this before, so
Well, we only have one more to go.
no, it's all right. I just have to make sure I adjusted this a little bit. That's fine.
All right, I'm going to change the agenda around a little bit, and I'm going to put the discussion item for the Bridgewater Township warehouses up front. I don't think we'll have a lot of discussion about it tonight, so I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have what you have in front of me is copies of the layout of the site plan and the architectural plan for the facility, so you have a sense of what's going on there. The borough has a complete application, one, from a developer that was supplied to the borough. We don't have multiples. If people want to see the traffic study or the environmental impact study, they can, but it's in Borough Hall. So what's going on is I reached out to Scarlett Doyle, that's the Bridgewater planner, and they have their own professionals writing review reports. And I found out that Joe Fishinger is doing a traffic report on behalf of Bridgewater, but we will not have these reports until December 1st, and the meeting's December 6th. So we don't have these reports as it stands right now. And I got that in writing from Scarlett. What Scarlett is saying is, the borough is not gonna get the reports until their board gets them. And the board's gonna get the reports the Thursday or Friday before the meeting, which is the following Tuesday.
Isn't that short, kind of tight schedule for them?
Well,
also?
it's a very tight schedule for us because we have no time to react. And we don't like the fact that we don't agree with everything, we want something different. And there's no time to put a report together.
The same thing holds true for their Board of Adjustment, that they have
Yeah,
4 or 5
that's
days
the
to
procedure.
react.
Larry, I hear you.
Not about 14 days or anything like that?
Well, if she gets the reports out the Thursday, Friday, or a Tuesday, I usually get the report out on Wednesday for a Wednesday, a week ahead, so she's a little less than that. But that's what she's saying the protocol is. So I do know that Joe Fishinger has done a traffic report on behalf of Bridgewater. And Kara has written that we're gonna object to this land use application, and we have the plans in front of you. I'm a little concerned of, I was talking to the chairman about this, I don't wanna reinvent the wheel. I was hoping we would have Bridgewater's reports, so Somerville wouldn't be forced to write their own reports. And I don't know if that's possible right now, because of the timing, we don't get their report until the Thursday before.
Well, I'm gonna talk to Carol about it again, and maybe she can shake something loose.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, my suggestion to both Kara and Mike is that they handle any testimony to be presented to the Bridgewater Board of Adjustment. And just keep us posted. Because, I mean, Mike knows how we feel about it, so.
The fact that Bridgewater is getting their own studies done kind of good. Makes me feel a little bit better too, that they're not just taking the report given to them by the developer. They're doing their own, so that's.
Mike, it's also my understanding the applicant has prepared a traffic study.
Yes.
I just wonder when they did that study, whether it includes the
No.
residential street restrictions that we put on here back in, I guess,
No.
September. So
No.
that study was done in the summer, those restrictions didn't exist, so the traffic patterns they saw at that time don't exist today.
Yeah, I do believe that the traffic study is rather lengthy, but it basically says there's less traffic than existing condition, and all the trucks will be entering the site from Route 22 East. So
Yeah, but how did they get to Route 22 East
That's
from
honestly-
Route 22 West? That's the crux
They're
of
only
it.
doing a traffic study.
Woodside Lane looks like it's an access, a potential access for it, and it wouldn't be coming up to our town hall, so. It's probably gonna be more of a problem for the people who live over at the senior citizens complex, which is right behind that.
Right.
And, probably they would be coming up to, Somerville at all, if I look at this. They can take Woodside Lane, expand
I
it.
don't- That's not, you can't, it's not through, and that's not the traffic line.
Well, could be through, but who knows?
If you read the report says that they're coming from 22, they're not gonna do a connection through the residential area. So the problem remains the same, in my opinion, that you have that trucks coming from eastbound, but somehow have to turn around and get on a 22 eastbound.
Eastbound,
Go
right.
westbound and go eastbound,
Right.
and then handle that.
Well, they just have to take the jug handle at 206. You know, take that exit and go back around and.
You can certainly do
We
that.
should probably just station an ambulance there now.
All right,
But yeah,
so Mike and Carol will keep us posted and we'll watch it. All right, thank you.
We are allowed, that's a public meeting, we are allowed to go and we are allowed to encourage
That's correct.
anyone affected, which could be the entire northeast quadrant of Somerville, to participate as well.
We said that we're gonna object, so we're gonna have our own table, so. we should-
Tables,
It kind of begs the question that if we're gonna give testimony, we should be there. Any reports that the board does is hearsay unless we're there, so we're gonna have to be there.
On there, the top sheet, we only got 2 pages. On the first page, the variance is requested. When you look at those, there's a lot of things that you're just asking that we would never, ever, never, ever do.
Right.
We've done some crazy things. This is whack. This is
I
beyond.
hear you, I'm just saying that you can review the full set of plans, it's only the first 2 sheets.
No, I'm just saying that when you look at their variances,
Yeah.
it lays it out, design waivers, these are things that if this were going on in our town, we would laugh in their face.
Right.
No way.
I would like if we could put this on the agenda for the next planning board meeting, if we don't have hearsay, if we don't have information, like the report's any sooner, if it's gonna be December 1st, I would like to be able to guide it a little bit into the ordinances to come up with something that I think we're gonna be forced to, because this isn't a time, unless somehow we can have the meeting continued. I don't know if
That's
that's
a
possible.
possibility. You know, that's, and our reason for requesting that would be not having adequate
Right.
time to respond.
I don't,
Well, that's certainly a great, that's certainly a substantial basis for carrying a meeting with something like this. It is a very short timeline.
yeah, I mean, the next meeting,
Having done these myself too, go ahead, I'm
oh,
sorry.
no, I'm good. I'm just saying the next meeting would be right before the holidays, in November, or if we're gonna do a research, put a report together. I'd like to start on it after the next meeting.
Okay.
If that's something we can decide, if the board wants to make a decision on that in the next meeting, see what Kara comes up with.
Yes.
Yeah, it's too important to
Right.
just hoping, hope that the variances alone are enough to sway that board. We need to speak up now
Yeah,
before the approval.
I'm
Once
very
it's approved,
comfortable with Joe Kissinger's writing the report.
I just wanna see, how they get to 22 East to make the right-hand turn. If they can magically do that without traversing our streets, more power to them,
But
but
they won't be going on any feeder streets from 28 to
Just change
22,
the
that's for
ordinance.
sure. They can go to 28 because it's a state highway and they do what's what they want.
and
Yeah.
they'll have to
We have,
go.
we have weight restrictions on the north-south streets, right?
That's
And
correct.
not on 28 south of the corner
Gaston.
of Gaston.
Right.
So it's left on Gaston, right on Main, right on Mountain.
But that's 28, and we don't have control.
No, and Mountain's a
That's
county
what I'm
road too, maybe we should.
Right.
You alert the county that they may wanna look at this too. Cause there's 2 schools on that street.
Okay, thanks, Mike. All right. So, did anybody, I forgot to open this up. Anybody in the audience have any comment on this? There's no comments. I read public session. Up next we have Somerville Pioneer Soil.
Yeah.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jessica Porter. I'm an attorney with Chiesa, Shahinian, and Giantomasi, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicants Somerville Pioneer 1 and Somerville Pioneer 2. At this time, would the board like us to introduce and swear in our witnesses, or do you usually do
I'd
that
like
as
to
we
do
go
it
along?
all at once.
Okay, sure. We'll have 2 witnesses this evening. We'll have John Irvin on behalf of the applicant, and then we'll have Thomas Fick, who is our engineer from Carroll Engineering.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I was just saying, usually I would do this, just want to make sure I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Gentlemen, would you raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, please state your names and spell your last names individually for the record. You, sir, first.
John Irvin, Ervin.
Yes?
Thomas Fick, last name is Fik, F as in Frank IK.
All right. Counselor, welcome. How can we help you?
So tonight, the applicants are seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval in connection with their proposal to construct a solar energy facility on property which is located at Route 206 and Washington Place, and is designated on Somerville tax maps as blocks 124, lots 1, 17.01, 21, and 22. Now, by way of background, which is area everyone on the board is very familiar with. The subject property is the site of a former municipal landfill and is located within an area in need of redevelopment. So the zoning for the property is specifically governed by the station area and landfill redevelopment plan. That plan was amended in December of 2020 to permit solar facilities on portions of the subject property as of right. Additionally, the subject solar facility will be a community solar project, so there are significant public benefits as well as a result of this project. Now, the redevelopment plan does not contain any specific bulk or other criteria with respect to solar facilities. So notwithstanding that, to the extent that this board finds that certain requirements are suitable in connection with the proposed development, the applicant is seeking deviations to the extent necessary or deemed necessary by this board for parking and other specific requirements, as you'll hear in the testimony this evening with respect to what the applicant is proposing. We intend to call 2 witnesses this evening. First, we will have a fact witness, our applicant's representative, Mr. Urban, who will talk to you about the project, what brought them to this community, and the specifics in terms of their proposal. And then we will have Mr. Fick, our engineer, who will walk you through the scope of our site plan. He will talk a little bit or touch upon the closure of the landfill simply as that relates to the process and some of the restrictions with respect to the redevelopment of this property for solar. And then he will describe specifically all of the site plan aspects of the proposed solar facility, including touching upon screening, landscaping, lighting, parking and the need for it, and various other aspects of the project, stormwater, etc. So unless the board has any questions for me, I'd like to begin with our first witness.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Urban, could you please provide the board with your professional background?
Sure. I graduated from Arizona State University with a Bachelor of Science in Construction Management. I was then hired by CS Energy as a project manager. Been working in the renewable energy field for over 10 years. I've done projects in New Jersey, Massachusetts, Utah, Florida, and California. In New Jersey, I've done over 200 megawatts of projects, including a 5 megawatt project that was a community solar project in the first year of the pilot program. That's completed and operational, and that was in the city of Linden. And
Great, and could you describe your involvement and affiliation with the applicants?
I am the Director of Development for CS Energy. I oversee all of the development projects in New Jersey.
Great, and can you provide the board with some general background regarding the applicants and Hathaway Solar?
Sure. So Somerville Pioneer and Somerville Pioneer 2 are subsidiaries of Hathaway Solar. Somerville Pioneer are also the lessees with the borough. We have a lease agreement with the borough for the operation of the solar facility. Hathaway Solar is CS Energy's development company within New Jersey. It holds all of the development assets within the state. And CS Energy on top is a solar developer and EPC contractor. We've done over 1.5 gigawatts across the country. In New Jersey alone, we've done over 100 megawatts of solar projects on landfills specifically, and we're located in Edison, Edison, New Jersey.
Great, now in your position as the Director of Development, are you familiar with the applicant's proposed development at a solar facility at this location?
Yes, I responded to the initial questionnaire for redevelopment that was put forward by the borough. I've been leading the development and design of the project, and I'm planning the construction of the project now.
Okay. So now let's get into the history of the property and the applicant's lease. Could you briefly describe the property and its relevant history?
Yes, so I understand the project or the landfill was operational between 1954 and 1984. It's currently partially closed. In 2018, approximately, there was the Green Seam project, which closed a portion of the landfill. The rest of the landfill remains unclosed and vacant land right now.
And what specifically brought the applicants to the property for purposes of this project?
And we responded to the questionnaire for redevelopment, which we were deemed as the best and most qualified respondent to redevelop the facility to a solar project.
And was also designated as a redeveloper?
Correct.
And that occurred in September of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Now you mentioned Hathaway Solar has a lease for this property. Could you provide the board with some just general background on that?
Sure. So through the redevelopment process, we have a lease agreement with the borough, which is a minimum 20-year lease, and that will allow the project, once it's operational, to occupy and operate for a minimum of 20 years. Between the lease and the redevelopment agreement, we're making a significant contribution to the capital needed to close the landfill, and then there's rent ongoing for 20 years at minimum.
Okay, so let's move on to the solar proposal. Could you please briefly describe the applicant's proposal?
Sure. So the first phase of the project is to close what's left after the green seam of the landfill. So presently, we've submitted our closure design to DEP, and we received that approval over the summer. The second phase of the project is to create the community solar project. The project we're proposing is a 10 megawatt total community solar project, and what that means is it ties directly to the grid, and then the electricity that we generate is delivered into the community. This project in particular will generate enough electricity to provide electricity for 1,600 homes, approximately. It's an opt-in program, so subscribers may choose to get their electricity from the site, and those that do will save on average $250 a year.
Great. Now, has the New Jersey Bureau of Public Utilities accepted this project yet?
No, they've not accepted the project yet. Presently, it's in the community solar program is in the second year of its pilot, which there's some operational projects, but they are rolling out their permanent program in the first quarter of next year, in which this project will apply to and participate in.
Terrific. Now, who is the proposed end user of the solar energy?
So 100% of the electricity will be for the subscribers of the community solar program, with the caveat that 51% of our project will be delivered to low and moderate income households.
So now let's move on to the particular suitability and the suitability of the solar system on the site. So could you discuss suitability of this particular location in terms of land area, topography, solar capacity, interconnection?
Sure. So landfills are particularly favored by the state of New Jersey. This project in particular is very well suited given the proximity to interconnection. There's several lines at Route 206 that we can confirm the capacity to connect our project. There's proximity to the substation right down the road. And then for community solar, it's preferred by the state to be on landfills and then also close to where the community that we're delivering electricity. As far as the topography, the landfill is generally flat to start, but through the closure of the site, we're incorporating the design to host the solar facility in a better way.
So let's move on now to how this system will work. Could you briefly describe how the solar panels will work?
Sure. So the panels will be mounted on concrete ballasts that will be above grade. They'll be supported by a metal racking structure, and then the panels will be mounted onto the racking structure. The panels themselves will absorb sunlight, will convert it to electricity, and then we have equipment that will prepare that electricity for delivery to the grid, which would be at the entrance to the site on Route 206.
Could you describe for the benefit of the board what some of the benefits are of the proposed project?
Sure. So the benefits, first and foremost, we're closing the landfill as part of this project. That's a huge endeavor for the borough. We are repurposing the otherwise unusable property. Many landfills are a burden to the community that they're located in. They have operational costs for maintenance and monitoring and reporting and the like. This project will provide rent to help offset those costs, and in doing so, we're providing renewable electricity to the community at a discounted rate.
Right, now let's move on to the timing of construction and the anticipated life of the system. So first, if you could just convey to the board what the anticipated timing is with respect to construction, assuming approvals are received.
Yeah, so for The overall construction of the site, we believe will take about 16 months for both the closure work to happen and the solar facility to be installed. As I mentioned earlier, the DPU is rolling out their pilot or their permit program, and we're expecting to start in the second quarter of next year.
Is there a deadline with respect to commercial operation for this facility?
Yeah, once we're awarded in the community solar, you have an 18-month window to become an operational with the ability to extend by petition.
Great, and once the facility is constructed and is operational, what is the anticipated maintenance schedule?
Maintenance is really light. At minimum, you'll have a technician with a pickup truck or SUV once a quarter. At most, you'll have that same technician once or twice a month. When they do come out to the site, the work that they're going to be doing is visual inspections of the site, make sure there's no issues. Visually, we'll be electrically testing the site, preventative maintenance, and performance monitoring of the site to make sure that it's operating correctly.
And then in connection with that maintenance, what's the anticipated need for employees or in general at this site?
There would be no need for employees at the site, so all of the monitoring and maintenance is done at our headquarters in Edison, New Jersey. We remotely monitor the site and can see what the performance is and see if there's any issues with the facility.
Okay, so we've discussed the operations of the project. And you mentioned that there's a 20-year lease. After the useful life of the project expires and the lease term ends, could you explain to the board briefly what the decommissioning process is?
Sure. In our lease, we are required to decommission the site after the term of the project is up or the term of the lease is up. What that would entail is essentially removing all components of the solar facility, concrete, equipment, pads, transformers, wire, panels. Then they will either be recycled or disposed.
Great. Thank you. I have no further questions, so if the board has any questions for this witness.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes. Somebody asked, are these the kind of panels that move, track the sun? Is that?
No, these are fixed tilt. So they're at a fixed tilt, and I think this one is approximately 15-degree tilt.
Out of curiosity, when does the lease, the 20-year lease start? Is it the beginning of the project end?
So technically, the lease is active now, and we have so we're doing the development for the project, meeting all of our permits. But the term of the lease starts when we start operating the site. So we have the full 20 years to operate the system.
Is that renewable?
It's extendable. Yeah, extendable out to 30 years.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the public once all the testimony is presented.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
Just want to mention to them, your witnesses will be remaining throughout the hearing. correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No one will leave, so that to the extent the public has questions for the witnesses or for the applicant.
I just want to make sure they're available whenever the board may have questions. It's fine. Please go ahead.
Now we are calling our second witness, this is Mr. Pitt, on behalf of Carroll Engineering, who will be testifying as an expert witness in the field of civil engineering. First, we will begin by qualifying Mr. Pitt. So could you please describe your educational and professional background to the board?
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from the University Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Rhode Island. I'm currently licensed in the state of New Jersey as well as Pennsylvania. I'm licensed in 2005. Currently work for Carroll Engineering in Hillsborough. I've been there for almost 27 years now. I'm also lead accredited AP, accredited professional. I have not testified, I don't believe I've testified in the borough of Somerville before, but I have testified in front of numerous other planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey.
And your license is current as an engineer?
Yes.
Okay. And did you prepare the site plans that were submitted to the board in advance of tonight's hearing?
Yes.
I would like to move that the board accepts Mr. Fick as
Move
an
to
expert.
second.
Okay, Mr. Fick, if you could begin by describing the existing conditions of the site and then move on to the proposed development area.
Sure. If I can, I'm just gonna stand up here, hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm gonna start with some exhibits. This is exhibit A1.
A9.
A9.
Okay, so we'll mark that as A9.
Please mark and date, and can everybody see that? And then
Do you need him to describe the title block for the benefit of the record?
I would ask that you do that, if necessary, you want, the board are gonna move just a little bit closer, or is it fine? Okay. Anyway.
Are these all things that we have in our packets?
Generally speaking, yes. They're just enlarged a bit and colorized.
This
All
is
right,
on
in
the
that
cover sheet
case-
of the site plan set.
If this is what you submitted to the board with your application, that's fine. You could, I don't think you need to read the title block so much, or,
I'll just describe what it is and
Right.
refer to the exhibit.
that would be fine.
Okay, so what you see here, this is exhibit A9. It's called an area map, and basically it's the aerial photo that's on the cover sheet, just enlarged. So I'm going to just describe the project location and the property. The property is known as Block 124. 3 lots, actually 4 lots, 1701, Lot 1, Lot 21, and Lot 22 are all involved in this project. All 4 lots measure about 50.3 acres, and the applicant is proposing to, the closure is only a portion of these lots as well, and the development of the solar facility is also a portion of those lots, which I'll get into some detail shortly. As mentioned before, the site's a former landfill. The limits of the landfill primarily on lots 21, 1, and 1701. And lot 22 is a borough-owned property and is currently vacant with a large gravel parking area that fronts Route 206. The green seam, as I mentioned earlier, is generally runs north and south, and a little bit runs to the east towards the transit village. It's generally, it bifurcates the landfill in 2 sections. We like to call it the west lobe and then the east lobe of the landfill. So if I do mention east lobe and west lobe, that's what that means. It means that there's a section here on the west side, and then the east side that's the landfill separated by the green seam. So the project fronts State Highway Route 206. There's one entrance, one driveway that provides access to the landfill, and that is the only access route as ingress and egress. So I'm just going to briefly describe the area in general. I'm going to start on the west side. As I mentioned, on the west side, the property fronts Route 206. Across 206 is generally vacant land, also borough of Somerville, and then further west is the Raritan River. As you head north on 206 to the northwest, we get into the borough of Raritan. There's the Orlando Drive, the jug handle for Orlando Drive at the northwest corner. And as we turn around towards the north, there's some undeveloped land north of the properties, and there's some wetlands in there, and tributary. It's all undeveloped, vacant. As we head eastward, now we get into the transit village. Lot 1901, lot 207 are properties owned by the transit village. And as we head further eastward and then south, there's some residences, some multifamily buildings. As we head further south, we see the Somerville Cemetery down in the southeast corner. Station Road that leads from Route 206 to the transit village abuts our property directly to the east. And as I mentioned before, lot 24 lot 22 is south of us, south of the property, and then further south is Sarah Jane's Restaurant, and then a property that's vacant that was used in part, was created in part of the green seam reconstruction.
Okay, now, Mr. Fick, if you could move on and describe the zoning in connection with the proposed development.
Sure. So, so currently there was an amendment, a redevelopment plan that permitted the solar facilities on portions of block 124, lots 1, 2, and 22. The solar facility is now permitted use, and the solar facility will lie primarily on lots 1 and 21. The lot 22, as we mentioned, is going to be a temporary use only. There's a driveway that comes off of 206, and there's this large gravel area that's here now will be used temporarily during the construction of the facility to keep construction vehicles off of 206, and will be connected between lots 22 and 21. There'll be a driveway that we created to keep traffic off of 206. So that's basically the overview of the site in general. And what I'd like to do now is just bring up the next exhibit, which is the landfill closure plan. And I'll call this A10.
A10, please state.
And what this is, so what this exhibit shows is generally what the landfill closure, the extent of the landfill closure. And so the applicant is proposing to close the landfill, as Mr. Urban mentioned earlier. This is a process that goes through the jurisdiction of NJDEP. There is a landfill closure and post-closure plan that was approved in June to permit the closure of this. So there's been extensive back and forth and coordination with DEP to close the landfill. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's the west lobe and the east lobe, south lobe also. I guess that's a different, I guess there's also another lobe here, but for general purposes, there's the west side and the east side. Again, this area in between the two lobes is the green seam that was previously closed. So what's going to happen is that the closure on the west side and the east side, once those are closed, it's going to create a continuous cap over the entire site. So in terms of the capping, what's generally going to happen is the site's going to be regraded. There's going to be a geotextile, a geomembrane, and then the surface is going to be topped with like a synthetic turf. It's called closure turf. It's very similar to an athletic field, but it has a sand infill. So that's going to be the final surface for the capping. As part of that work for the closure, there's going to be an access drive created for operations and maintenance for not only the landfill, but also the solar project as well. There's also going to be some stormwater control measures. There's going to be some swales. There's going to be some soil erosion features also on the exterior of the cap. There's going to be a passive venting system for gases, and as I mentioned, just the access drive will come off of 206, and that'll be the only entrance used for maintenance vehicles in the future. The one thing we do want to point out, though, is that the green seam, access to the green seam will be via new paths that are going around the east lobe and also portions of the east side of the west lobe. So generally along both sides of the tributary through the green seam, the public will have access to the green seam on both sides, but no access will be permitted to the landfill or the solar facility. There'll be gates, there'll be fencing and gates provided so the public is not permitted to go into those facilities. So the total cover system will be about 36 acres in total, one continuous cap as approved by DEP and the landfill closure and post-closure plan. And as the result of the successful capping, there's going to be monitoring, there's going to be inspections, and there's going to be regular maintenance as dictated in the closure plan itself. So that's going to be performed and then also submitted to DEP regularly. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the type of maintenance that's involved here. So the borough is going to be the owner and operator of the landfill, so therefore they'll be responsible for the overall maintenance of the closure of the closed landfill. And so basically certain components such as the stormwater, soil erosion measures, passive gas venting, culverts, access roads will be all required by, needs to be completed by the owner and operator, which is going to be the borough. The lessee of the solar fields, which we'll get to in a minute, they'll be responsible for the inspections and maintenance of those areas within those lease areas. And some of those things will be, just inspecting and maintaining the solar facilities, the fencing around the perimeter of the solar system, the access roads within the lease area, and generally the cover within the, around each facility on the east lobe and the west lobe. So I think I'll now bring up the solar part of this project. Basically, you can see the green here as the cover, and then on top of the east lobe and west lobe is the solar, and this will be A11. And the name of this plan is just called Solar Development. And what this shows is the solar panels system on top of the capped landfill. So basically, what this is comprised of is solar panels that are mounted to ballast blocks, which are large concrete blocks. They sit on top of the closure turf. They don't penetrate the cap. You can't penetrate the closed cap here, as opposed to non-landfill installations where you can drive posts into the ground for installation. But here, in this case, you can't damage the cap, so therefore the blocks will be sitting on top. I just want to also mention that the landfill closure and post-closure plan does include the installation of the facility, the solar facility in there, and it does provide guidelines and conditions in that plan. So the design of the closure did include the design of the solar facility. So the panels are set east-west direction, facing due south. As John Urban mentioned earlier, they're about a 14 to 15 degree tilt. Each row is about 7 feet 8 inches clear from front panel to the back panel, and maximum height above finished grade is about, that's in the back, on the highest part, about 6 to 7 feet above finished grade. Just to give you some perspective. So I'm 6 foot, so it's just 6 to 7 feet. So as I mentioned, so there's two separate systems. There's one on this side of the green seam, there's one on that side of the green seam. There are equipment pads that are generally in the middle of the west lobe. They are conduits are fed from the interconnection point, which is near the entrance off of 206. And from here, they travel above grade, except when crossing a roadway or also crossing the green seam. They're below grade, but in general, everything is above grade on top of the closure turf, on top of the cap, connecting all the equipment, and then being connected to the two co-located arrays. So they mentioned the crossing for to get from the west slope to the east slope. The conduits are going to be installed underneath the existing gravel road that's there now. It'll be put below, so it won't impact any kind of issues here with the tributary. So they're going to be below grade, and then once they clear the cap, they'll go up and then stay above grade. And as I mentioned earlier, the interconnection here, the interconnection will be utility poles will be installed by PSE&G just inside the perimeter fencing at the 206 entrance. PSE&G will dictate the amount of poles and the type of poles at that location, and then the overhead wires will come in from the existing power line that's out there, and then drop down and then go above grade. So in terms of access, as I mentioned before, there's only one access currently. The one access that is proposed that's off of 206 will be a gated access. We have had discussions with NJDOT on that. However, we submitted an application. We're kind of waiting to hear back from them, but we're not expanding or changing the width of the existing driveway curb opening there, so we plan to utilize the same location, the same width in that location. So further discussions with DOT, if they do require any revisions, we will follow up with those. So as I mentioned, the only entrance is off of 206, and that'll be gated. The entrance will only be permissible by either the borough, maintenance personnel, fire department, any other necessary personnel will be allowed to come into that area here. If necessary, the fire department will either have a lockbox, a Knox box, or some other method. But definitely going to coordinate with the fire department if necessary. To get them access to that in the property. As I mentioned earlier, there's a gravel area here on lot 22 we use as a temporary staging area and parking area during construction. The materials will be stored here during construction and through this proposed connector, the roadway access drive here. That will keep vehicles from going constantly onto 206 and off 206. This is a much safer proposed route, and so when the construction is completed, obviously the applicant will restore this to existing conditions and just for the borough's satisfaction after construction. We plan to leave this driveway in and then provide a gate here and keep that locked, and that could serve as an additional entrance if necessary in the future for whatever reason. But we intend to keep this roadway here but keep it locked and gated. In terms of traffic, as John Urban mentioned earlier, there's just going to be maintenance occasionally. We don't anticipate anything more than an SUV, pickup truck type of vehicle. Inspections may occur quarterly and then or annual basis as needed. In terms of parking, there really isn't a need for it. We don't anticipate a large amount of vehicles to be on site at one time. However, we have provided turnaround areas, generally in the middle and then at the end. So there's some ability here for several vehicles to park. However, this is not going to be a site that, again, has multiple vehicles on any certain day, requiring to travel and pass each other. So it's just that it is not going to be a very highly traveled site. There are no permanent staff assigned to this site. There's going to be no habitable spaces, no structures, no water or sewer required. It's just going to be an unmanned solar facility. As I mentioned earlier, the public will have access to the Green Scene off of Station Road and from the Transit Village. And there will be a fence that will keep the public out of closed landfill and solar facilities. Those gates, there will be gates set up here, but they will be locked at all times.
Before we get away from the fencing,
Sure.
would you describe it?
So
Describe the fencing?
yeah, the fencing, so generally, chain link type of fencing, 7 foot high is a code requirement. We're going to have, right now, we're proposing a green PVC coated type of fence around, anywhere down the plans that says proposed perimeter fence. Along Station Road will be a decorative fence, and I'll get to the exhibit shortly, just so that it connects with the Transit Village, but all the other fences, some of these fences will have to be ballast type of fences because we can't penetrate into the cap. Places, fencing that's off the cap, we'll be able to put in, you can drive them into the ground and use concrete at certain locations.
While you're on security question, who's responsible for monitoring and responding to security issues at the site? Are there cameras or anything like that?
There's no cameras on site.
So kids that are going to get bored and climb the 7 foot fence and get in there, for example, how's that handled? Is that not considered?
We have a 7 foot fence for the NEC requirements for these types of facilities. That's what's required to keep individuals out. We'll have danger, high voltage signage around. Everything will be locked, and so yeah, that's what's proposed.
I did have one other question about, you said no habitable buildings. There'll be some sort of control building there for electronics, for monitoring, for.
Well, they'll be the concrete pads will hold the switch gear and other type of equipment, but nothing where you can go into the door or anything like that. There won't be anything like that.
You mean just like storage?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
you should distinguish.
Nothing storage there.
There would be there's no enclosures. So all the maintenance and monitoring is electronic equipment. We have that communicates back by cellular connection.
And the maintenance people will bring their own equipment if necessary based on that certain type of inspection or maintenance activity.
So there isn't like an office on site or something like that? All right, that was, frankly, that was kind of, I'm glad you clarified that.
Yep. So in terms of landscaping and buffering and screening, so for the clearing, for the landfill closure, the site will have to be cleared to go ahead and do the regrading and add the cap on top of it. Trees are not permitted to be grown, not permitted on landfills. Root systems, the trees will impact the cover of the cap, so there'll be no trees on the top of the cap. The applicant has been working with the developer of the Transit Village to install additional screening on the northeast side of the property. I can bring up this exhibit. This would be A12.
Please state it.
Yeah.
And this is called a screening exhibit. This is what the applicant is working with the developer to install arborvitae along this property line here. These are the two buildings closest to the solar array. South Davenport is here, Station Road is here. So adding extending the decorative fence down Station Road to the the second access point to the green seam at that point, and also adding the line of arborvitae's along the property line here to create provide extra screening. We selected this arborvitae's. They're installed planted height of about 6 to 7 feet. They're fast growing arborvitae. And we also selected those because of the root system. They're a compact root system because there's a wall that runs along here, so we didn't want to have any large trees impacting the wall that's there. So we thought that was a good solution for the screening. And as we during construction, the applicant will work with the developer to ensure that the green seam connections are we just coordinate to make sure that everything ties in and connects as intended. There's no lighting. I'm going to go back to
A11.
A11. Thank you. The solar. No site lighting is proposed. No pole lights of any kind. Nothing at all. This is primarily the maintenance and things that happen during the day, but there's no need for additional lighting. And it's not a manned use. Again, generally access is usually during the day, so there's no lighting here. It'll be completely dark at nighttime. I did talk about the fencing a little bit. We did talk about the 7-foot high fence, chain link for anti-climbing type purposes. We are proposing a 2-inch mesh size in the chain links. We said as John mentioned, danger high voltage signs will be placed along the entire perimeter fence. There's no monument signs. There's no freestanding signs proposed at all in this application. We touch base on parking, loading area. Again, loading areas, there's no need for loading areas. Parking, again, is very minimal use. There won't be a significant amount of vehicles on site at one time in terms of parking. However, there are enough turnaround areas that we provided. And if I could just touch base on the construction process again a little bit. Lot 22 we use as a laydown area. So that's just going to be some employee parking, construction parking, materials, some trailers there as well during construction, and they'll be removed, and then the area will be restored. And then we do provide one of our plans, I believe it's sheet 9, shows up 100 parking spaces can be fit in here without expanding, without any expansion of that existing area. I think it showed 2 trailers and 100 parking spaces, but it's not likely that 100 spaces will be used at one time, but there is sufficient parking there for construction of the site, the closure and the installation of the service. So again, no changes to the curb cut. 206 will remain the same. And in terms of permits, NJDEP is currently reviewing our flood hazard area individual permits, wetlands permits. That's currently under technical review. And we did get a letter from Somerville County with a letter of no interest. And Soil Conservation District, we just received approval recently, so we do have a certification from Somerville Soil Conservation. And NJDOT, we are working with them. We just submitted an application for a minor driveway access permit, but we're working with them, and any comments that they have will address going forward.
Okay, I have a question. You're going to, I've been up there. There's some steep areas. You're going to grade that whole landfill? You're going to put fill in there under the cap?
Yes.
So it will be, how thick is the cap and how much fill you're planning to put under there?
I don't know if you have a number. So a lot of it is a balancing site, and then there's compacted subbase. So there's an engineering spec for the subbase for the closure turf, and then the liner and cap. It's designed to be thin. So you have the geomembrane liner, the turf, and then there's a half-inch sand infill that goes on top of it.
Now, currently, we have monitoring, I believe Geosyntec's been monitoring it for a long time. Will the project incorporate that array? So how do they monitor it with the cap on it, I guess is the question.
So Geosyntec is principally part of the design of the actual landfill closure. So they're going to be retained as the LSRP ongoing.
What's the maximum lifespan of the cap technology?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I believe. Hey, I'd rather get back to you on that. The half-life is significantly long. There's a lot of testing that's been done on the facility. It's approved by EPA and been used on superfund sites and the like. But that's something I don't know offhand.
Okay, and my question is, you're building on top of the cap, so it sounds like the cap life will be longer than the technology and the material on top. Okay, that's where I was going with that. But you're not sure, but you can either get back to us or
it's greater than 30 years.
I have another question also about the, you said venting gases.
Yes.
What kind of gases?
Well, the methane, I think gases generally, we do have trying for an air permit at DEP, so I can assume that it's going to be within DEP standards. I don't have any information on that because that's something that our landfill design team has, but we can forward that along.
Couple quick questions. One of the approvals, did this go through the fire marshal's office yet? As far as that access road is my concern with, can that handle fire trucks going on it, and can it turn them around?
Yes. I'm not testimony, but we've already tested all that with the green set.
But so with this access road, though, fire truck can get down there
It already exists, yes.
and turn around there and come
Yes,
back?
and it can actually cross between the loads.
Just to clarify, sir, could you just identify yourself? So
I thought you might ask that, Cliff.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
Colin Driver, I'm Director of Economic Development, I'm also project lead on this. Therefore, just to answer the question, all the roads through that have previously been tested by the fire department when we did the green set. And the roads more than adequately support the weights of the trucks, the turning radii are in excess of what's required by the fire trucks.
All right, before I do anything, before we go any further, just please stand and raise your right hand.
Ah!
No,
I'm sorry.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you have just given and will be about to give in this in connection with this matter will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spell your last name for the record.
Colin Driver, D-R-I-V-E-R.
So,
All right.
just to continue, a couple quick questions. So there's no on-site battery storage or anything like that? It's all just fed directly into the grid? We're not storing any energy on site?
Any other questions from the board?
Just coming back, I don't want to push the security question, but will the police have access through the gates if there's an issue?
Yeah, we can work out either they have keyed entry or we can do a Knox box at the gate, whichever.
We have a report from our planner. Before I open it up to the public, I'd like to go through that report. And some of your questions out in the audience might be answered. So beginning on page 2 of 3. Okay, number 1 is we've covered. 2 is covered. 3 we have covered. 4 we've covered. 5 we've covered. 6 we've covered. 7, I think we covered that. Access drive. All right. Okay, 8 is okay.
With regards to that, I know we did talk about that. On the other portions, specifically the northwest corner, how far is that from those properties? At the top left there, those properties aren't gonna be able to see that,
Yeah,
correct?
there's a little tributary stream that's kind of fed from the wetlands here. This is all wooded, and we're not.
The net's staying, so it's not, okay.
Yeah, we're not allowed to go in there.
Okay. 9 we've covered. Okay, 10 is just a note that you gotta add stuff to the plan, which you agree to do, right?
Yes.
Okay, 11. Yeah. 12, 13, 14, I think we've covered everything.
Just for sake of argument, obviously this area does take water. All this equipment can handle getting submerged in water during one of our 100-year storms.
That's all, we submitted all of our stormwater, calculation and DEP. So
I meant like your equipment though can handle
It's-
being submerged.
We have the equipment pads are up higher, up on the hill, so they'll be up on the hill.
Is it, we have a 100-year storm. Every now and then.
Yeah, I think
They
all
are.
of this is good.
I'll show you photos.
And then, that was basic, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and also the green seam acts as a drain for that whole area right here. So any water that would be in a huge, flash flood, which is really what we're looking at. Not so much backwater, but flash flood. That would most likely go down into the green seam, because like Colin will correct me if I'm wrong, but that handled the Ida, I think, fairly well.
You're correct, Councilman Graham.
Whatever.
Even during Ida, we've got photos that show where the stormwater was, and Ida was high, even for the green seam, and the green seam was designed to hold, I don't want to say billions, but it was millions and millions of extra gallons of stormwater. And where they proposed to put the switch gear and everything else wasn't covered during Ida. It was still high and above it. Not to say that the water didn't creep up the sides of where the cap will be, but by and large, the areas they're proposing to put the panels, and we've looked at this and talked with the DEP and everything else, are pretty well out of the 500-year floodline.
Will the cap allow for drainage?
Yes.
The stormwater drainage systems all around the entire cap.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I will open it up to the public for questions and for comments. Please state your name and address for the record.
Please, your comments or your questions are to be limited to what the expert testified as to. So there'll be a separate section for a separate time to hear your comments.
Okay, my name is Jeremy Sant.
Please stand.
Raise my right hand.
No, I just identify yourself.
Okay, so my name is Jeremy Sant, and I live in 22 South Davenport Street, very close to this site, so that's why today I'm coming here. Mr. Fritz, can you tell me how far is the site close to the South Davenport Street? I mean, I wanted exactly how far is it, because I want my community to know about it. I represent my community.
Your voice is very soft. Remember, everything's being taken down by recording, but please, if you could speak a little louder, I appreciate it.
Okay, sure, no problem, because this is my first time, I'm sorry.
No, I understand, it's not a problem.
I want exactly the number, how far is it from the 22 South Davenport Street, or, South Davenport Street?
There's probably,
This is not.
maybe I make this as an exhibit. This is the actual set of plans in front of you. This is that sheet.
I can answer it in part. You're in the townhouse development, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. There are some renderings here that will show, because we were very much concerned how it would impact. Concerned how it would impact residents on the townhouses or in the townhouses. And while you may see in the distance the
But I
solar
want to know how far exactly.
Well, we'll tell you that in a minute. If you let me explain first, and then we'll get to it.
Sure, no
And
problem.
we're putting screening up so it will not intrude where you live to start with. We're putting trees and a decorative fence. It will be probably, depends on which townhouse you're in. And I can't tell by these maps which one is 22 South Davenport versus what is 24 South Davenport.
It's South Davenport Street.
Yeah, well, it depends on where you are, but it could be within 200 feet.
200 feet, okay. So those
South-
panels,
South
right?
Davenport, this is,
Yeah.
so it's 140 feet.
We have 140 feet to the property line at South Davenport.
140 feet? Okay, let me put this down because I need to tell the neighbors. Secondly, how much heat you can generate it from the sign, because in the summertime you generate the heat because you absorb the heat from the ground, so you create a lot of heat. How big that property developed? How many acres? 42 acres, right?
It's approximately 35 of the solar facility.
Okay, so it's 35 acres that, so how much heat you can generate in that area? Because once you generate a lot of heat in that area, it will be impact that community. It's not only the new townhouse, but also Avalon's building a residential rental buildings over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe they're building another 4 buildings. That would be affected 1,000 people. The health. I from the medical fields, and I'm a professional, so I understand now because the air quality is very important to the health, especially right now it's a pandemic, post-pandemic. And is it too much heat? Is enough tree to absorb those heat? And secondly, there is adding on in the next 2 years, you understand that, board member, there is irrelevant. Will be 1,000 people move in that area. Where
Could you put your statement in the form of a question? If you have comments, it should be held to later.
Okay, sure. Yes, my comment, my concern is that there is
No, your question. It shouldn't be a
Okay.
comment or a concern, it should be a question.
Okay, so how much heat will we generate in that area, sir? And how do you know how much will be impact other people's health, the solar panel? And
So
also,
the solar panels, it's a benign development. When they're operating, the panels are warm to the touch, but they don't generate heat in that.
Yeah, but
it
it's
would make it the surrounding area warmer.
you absorb the sun heat, you won't
We convert it to
you won't
electricity.
generate the heat over there. And also it's 140 feet from the the townhouse over there. So that's my question.
Are you worried about reflective heat?
I'm sorry?
Are you worried about reflective heat? Like it reflecting heat onto?
Yes, because you absorb the heat, right?
It absorbs the heat. It doesn't reflect the heat. It turns the heat energy into electrical energy. There is no residual heat.
Right, it's stored.
Yeah, there's different types of solar facilities. I think what you're referring to is called concentrated solar, where you basically reflect and you make steam. That's not what this is. This is a photovoltaic. It absorbs the sunlight, and converts that into electricity, and then sends that through the conduits and wires to the transformers, which connect to the grid. It doesn't create heat or dissipate heat as part of its operation.
Well, I don't have a, because I did some research back then. But I didn't have any documents because I received this letter. It's very late. The postmark is October 1st. In the letter is saying I have to submit some documents within 10 days, which is October 12, 10 days, basically October 2nd, I need to submit any documents. But the postmark from this letter is October 1st. I don't have any time to submit any approval for any documents. That's what I can't say I don't want to have an argument with you because I don't have any time for submit any documents. You can see it, but for me, I just so unfair for the people who received the letter late, and I talked to the people and the complex.
Madam, you cannot make statement. If you want to have comments, you can hold those to later. I will indicate to you that the notice was provided, and I'll ask the applicant's attorney to confirm this. No, you're incorrect. Okay. The applicant's notice was provided in accordance with the municipal land use law and with the Open Public Meetings Act. So you were not provided with short notice. You were provided with legal notice, and if you did, and that notice is perfected upon mailing. So if for some reason the post office did not get it to you in time, or you did not receive it or open it on time, that is not the applicant's problem.
Sir, it's October 1st.
No, ma'am, you're wrong. I'm sorry.
If the certified mailing is done at least 10 days prior to the hearing, it is legally sufficient, and that's exactly what was done in this instance. We provided an affidavit of publication and mailing to the board, which states that it was done in accordance with law. It was published in the newspaper, and it was provided to all property owners within 200 feet of the property. That meets the legal criteria to allow the board to have jurisdiction over the application.
I don't want to be argumentative.
Okay, I don't want to argue with you, but I'm just telling you I don't have enough time to provide any documents.
Well, that's different.
All right.
But
so
maybe
the reason is I received the letter is late. I received the letter is August 2nd.
Enough.
Sorry.
If you have comments, you can make them at the end of the hearing.
Okay,
Are there
sure.
other questions?
Yeah. Jeff Foreman at 29 Washington Place says there would be an impact on Washington Place. What is that impact?
North, well north of us. We're not doing any work beyond 1701, so you have at least 500 feet between the property line and the back of the properties.
500 feet?
At least, yeah, with all woods and everything with no.
You don't need to, all right. So if you know when they cap it and they put in the vents for methane gas, how many vents do you have any idea?
They should be able to tell you that, but we've already got vents out there. They're called passive vents.
Yeah, they're further out towards 206, yeah.
Well, they're all through. They're all through that area, and they have been for probably 20 odd years. And there's really no change other than the fact that the DEP insists that the vents be there.
And just last question, what's the maintenance on the cap? Like for the borough is responsible for?
Sure,
Is there
that's a good question. The maintenance is fairly limited. So there's, one of the good things with this cap is there's a great ability to see visually if there's anything wrong. So it's, if there was an issue, there's a patch protocol that you could repair the patch, and then it's more commonly you're bringing sand infill to make sure that the turf has the proper coverage there.
So it could get pricey?
No.
If I can just make it clear, where the solar panel area is going to be, it's on them. Not on the borough.
Yeah, but the borough's
It's
in
only
charge. The borough's in charge of the cap.
No, they're in charge of the cap for 20 years. The bits that fall outside the fence that is surrounding it, the borough is responsible.
Yeah, and just to add too, I mean the landfill the borough's under obligation to close the landfill. And no matter what, there's gonna be operations and maintenance program that's associated with the landfill closure. What we're proposing is, in fact, reduce operating costs, and we're actually doing a lot of the maintenance within the solar.
Okay.
Site.
That's it, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Anything from the board? Okay. Now we'll open it up for statements.
Yes,
Try not to be redundant, please.
a few statements. with
Don't
respect-
tell us what you've already told us.
Please identify yourselves as we've asked previously.
Yes. Jerusalem and 22 South Davenport Streets. I have questions. So what is the life expectancy for those panels used? How do you dispose them?
So the panels themselves have a 35-year life expectancy. There's many projects that are operating that are longer than that. The term of our lease is 20 years with the borough, upon which we will dispose of them and either recycle them or they'd be disposed of.
How do you determine, how much electricity to, produce? Because in New Jersey, there is not much sunlight, only 3 months in a year. In the winter time, it's very cold. Spring is cold too.
We have predictive modeling that we do. It's industry recognized. New Jersey's a relatively good state. There's been a lot of projects that have been built in this state that are functioning and operational and generating electricity over year as expected.
Have you done some research about, the weather, like in the past 10 years?
Yep. Our models we do as part of the energy model that for the site we do. I think they're class 1 energy models. So we look at weather station data from different locations around the state. We pick ones that are reliable. A lot of times it's airports can provide us data. And we use that energy model weather data to predictably estimate how much electricity we're going to produce, which is how we can determine this product will provide 1,600 households with electricity.
You sure 1,600?
That's what.
How do you deliver those electric to those families?
They sign up for the community solar program, and we deliver them electricity.
So you still have a way to build to develop a delivery those. For example, I live in that townhouse. How can you deliver your solar electricity to my townhouse?
It's the benefit of the community solar program. It's done.
He's talking about transmission.
Yeah, transmissions.
Yeah, I know. So we don't need to be electrically connected to your dwelling. The community solar is a remote net metering program where you sign up for the project. On your bill, you'll see that you're part of this community solar project. You'll get a credit to your PSE&G electric bill, and then you'll have a separate invoice from the solar facility, which it would be at least 20% less than what you would pay to PSE&G.
Do you know how much a month, a year?
Over the course of a year on average, it depends on the household's usage, but our estimates are it's about $250 annually. That's what it will be saved.
So it's only 1,600 family and $250 for annually for saving.
For each household.
Each household, 250 times 1,600 per year.
It's a lot of savings over the course of the program.
But how much does it cost to build? Compare the cost and the benefits. You cannot just are saving that much, but what is the cost? And also, how do you after 20 years? How do you dispose of those? You take it down, and also can you put it back to the original or just like
It's,
empty fields, like
it's
with
going to be
concrete?
restored to the landfill closure condition after decommissioning. So it'll be removed, and you'll have the landfill as it's been there since the last 2 decades. It'll be there.
I would like to jump in here.
So are you going to dig out the concretes, you know?
Chairman, just
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to jump in here. What we're discussing here is all subject to an agreement with the borough, not with this board, with the borough council.
Sure.
Well, it's already been agreed to, there's a developer's agreement,
Sure.
and it's not really within our purview to question it. That's, if you have an issue with the program and the way it's gonna operate, you need to go to the governing body and make it clear to them that you have an issue with it.
No, I want to know the environmental. I want to know after 20 years, do they like dig out those concretes and let them dirt, you know, the empty field, like the dirt, and then they will grow back the trees and
No,
the
it
grass.
won't grow back
you know?
trees. You're not allowed to grow trees.
Okay, so no trees, but at least the the
It'll
grass.
it'll be just open fields.
Okay,
That's
just like grass, like right now.
Well, no, it's weeds and
Yeah, the
stuff
weeds,
right
yes,
now.
yeah, the
You'll need to
weeds,
close
yes.
the curb.
the purpose of this hearing is to determine not the merits of the overall proposal, is to determine if the proposal is in conformance with the guidelines of the municipal land use law. Again, if you have questions about the merits of the proposal itself, the venue you should address them to is the council of the borough. There is one member sitting on the board, so he can, whether he can't address it at this meeting, but he can certainly address these to that gentleman and his colleagues at a regularly scheduled governing body meeting.
Okay, thank you for the information. You know, that's it.
Mr. Brady, Councilman Brady, am I out of line here?
Well, actually, I turned off at 7 o'clock. That's when my shift ends. So, Mr. Mayor, and I did not set the agenda.
I would just
So-
repeat what
You
attorney
understand
so
what I'm
eloquently
saying? Is
I-
at the end of the
fully
day, it's a
understand.
legislative issue, not a planning issue.
But I'm not an advocate, nor am I a contestant. I'm simply sitting here. That would be a decision that has to be made by the mayor and the council president, and I'm not.
And I'll repeat what the attorney so eloquently said. This is just like building a house. An applicant would come in with a proposal, say, here's my lot, here's the roads, here's what I'd like to do. Does my project meet the land use criteria? This board has no jurisdiction over the contract, the terms of the contract, the amount of the rent, what happens at the end. That's all specified in the contract. And to my understanding, the contract calls for the removal of the equipment when it's no longer needed after the lease is expired, and if neither party wants to extend the lease, all of the hardware goes away, and we're left with a clean piece of land for future borough use, because we will retain ownership.
Okay, I understand. Last questions. When you constructions, what is a vehicle to come from? I mean, to the sites, which roads?
Which is Route 206 is the access to the site.
Okay, thank you. That's what I can say.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I will close the public session.
Are either of you gentlemen, do you have any comments or questions? I'm just referring to the two gentlemen in the back.
Representative.
They're here for
Just observation.
All right, very good. Just want to make sure we're not, we're not ignoring you or something like this.
Thank you. I'm leaving.
Okay. Any other public comments to something want to move this?
I move to accept it.
This is the second roll call.
Listen, I understand. one comment I would make, Mr. Chairman, I presume there are no further comments for the council. Do you need any further comments to close?
We do not, we rest on the testimony that was provided and our compliance with respect to all of the items set forth in the report that we received.
Yes, I was just gonna say, this is, the vote is, with approvals as noted from the report, correct?
Yes.
The additional ones, obviously. Yeah, I'm just making sure that's in there.
No, I would recommend as a condition of approval that the professional reports be complied with.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
I just wanted to make sure we weren't bypassing.
No, we're not bypassing anything. In addition, there are certain standard conditions. When I do resolutions for you, I have conditions that escrows have to be paid, and that if there are other federal, state, or county requirements, you must comply with them. They're all integral aspects of your approval. I presume that there is no objection with such conditions. You've seen them, I'm sure.
No, those are common conditions. We have no issue with the escrow. We have certainly no issue with obtaining all of our required ancillary approvals.
Has the applicant applied for, or is there anyone, perhaps our planner can answer this, have all of the local permits been applied for and rendered? Because there may be, there's always perhaps issues that have to be resolved, and we make sure that the local plant, the local construction code, those people at the borough level, you've talked very much about what happened with the state, the DEP, and everything else. But the one concern that I have is any delays that may occur because of something we've done, and there I can take that responsibility, okay?
Yeah, so the local permits we will submit when the more construction-ready sets are developed, so we'll be applying for building and electrical permits as part of the installation.
So there should be no problem with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a quick comment before we vote? Since the last garbage trucks left the site, and Bernie, I guess your kids and my kids were still small.
Yes.
We probably contributed a lot to what's in that landfill. Since that last truck left, the borough has wrestled with what to do with what we always thought was valuable highway frontage. The site has been a challenge environmentally, socially, politically. I think this is the best, most efficient, most profitable. Not profitable, most ecologically sensible use with this land. It is the length of the contract, which again is on our purview, gives the developer time to make money, but we get a clean piece of land, we get good energy. I'm voting yes.
I sometimes the board polls all its members, so
I'll just call a roll.
All right, very good. All right. Mr. Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes.
Let's see, Mr. Carestas?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry. Mr. Kraska?
Yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
And Mr. Navarro, Chairman
Yes.
Navarro?
Yes.
All right, approved unanimously. Council, I will, either I myself or Mr. Chinsky will prepare a resolution. We'll coordinate that with your office. And, I give you my contact information if needed. We've worked before in other towns, so, all right, Mr. Chair, it's all back in your hands.
Okay, I have no comments, and I will entertain the motion to adjourn.
Okay, sure.
Vote. Second vote. You gotta do it.
I'll open it up to the public again for items not on tonight's agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All of them in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry.